Have you ever wondered what it was like to sail into the complete unknown, with only the stars, a compass, and sheer guts to guide you? Today, we're diving into the incredible story of a man who did just that, a man whose name is synonymous with one of the greatest feats of exploration in human history, Ferdinand Magellan. But here's the twist. The story you think you know is probably wrong. Magellan himself never actually completed the journey he's famous for. So, how did he become the legendary figure we remember today? Stick around, because this is a tale of ambition, betrayal, mutiny, and a voyage that forever changed our understanding of the world. Ferdinand Magellan, or Fernão de Magalhães, in his native Portuguese, was born around 1480 into a family of minor nobility. From a young age, he served as a page at the Portuguese royal court, a place buzzing with news of incredible discoveries. This was the golden age of discovery for Portugal. Vasco da Gama had just found a sea route to India, and ships were returning laden with exotic spices worth more than gold. Young Magellan was captivated. He dreamed of adventure and glory, and he knew his destiny lay on the high seas. As a young man, he got his wish. He joined the Portuguese fleets sailing to the East Indies. For about a decade, he was right in the thick of it, fighting in battles in India, participating in the conquest of Malacca in modern-day Malaysia, and gaining invaluable experience as a soldier and a sailor. It was during this time that he likely first heard whispers of the Spice Islands, the Moluccas, the fabled source of nutmeg. And cloves, spices so valuable they could make a man fantastically wealthy. The idea of finding a new, westward route to these islands began to form in his mind. But life wasn't all smooth sailing. After returning to Portugal, Magellan found himself out of favor with King Manuel I. Wounded in battle in Morocco, he was left with a permanent limp. When he requested an increase in his pension, the king flatly refused him. Not only that, the king also rejected Magellan's ambitious proposal to find a westward route to the Spice Islands. Why? Because Portugal already controlled the eastern route around Africa, and they saw no need for a risky, unproven alternative. Feeling disrespected and with his ambitions thwarted in his home country, Magellan did something unthinkable for a Portuguese nobleman of his time. He renounced his nationality and offered his services to Portugal's biggest rival, Spain. In 1517, Magellan arrived in Seville, Spain, with a bold proposition for the young Spanish king, Charles I, who would later become Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. Magellan, along with his partner, the astronomer Rui Falero, presented a compelling argument. They believed the world was smaller than most geographers thought, and that a strait, a passageway, existed through the recently discovered continent of South America. If they could find this strait, they could sail across the unknown ocean on the other side and reach the Spice Islands. Crucially, they argued that according to the Treaty of Tordesillas, an agreement that divided the newly discovered world between Spain and Portugal, the Spice Islands actually fell within the Spanish hemisphere. This was a direct challenge to Portuguese claims and a huge gamble. King Charles, eager to break Portugal's monopoly on the spice trade and establish Spain's own path to riches, was convinced. He agreed to fund the expedition. Magellan was given command of a fleet of 5 ships: the Trinidad, the San Antonio, the Concepcion, the Victoria, and the Santiago. His crew was a motley collection of about 270 men from all over Europe: Spaniards, Portuguese, Italians, Germans, Greeks, and more. This international mix, especially the large number of Spaniards who were suspicious of their Portuguese captain-general, was a recipe for trouble. In September 1519, the Armada de Molucca set sail from Spain. The journey across the Atlantic was difficult, but it was nothing compared to what lay ahead. As they sailed down the coast of South America, the weather grew colder, and the provisions began to dwindle. Months passed, and there was no sign of the promised strait. The Spanish captains grew restless and resentful of Magellan's authority. They questioned his leadership and accused him of recklessly leading them to their doom. The simmering tension finally boiled over in April 1520 at a desolate bay in Patagonia they named Port St. Julian. 3 of the 5 ship captains launched a full-blown mutiny. They seized control of their vessels and demanded that Magellan turn back to Spain. It was the ultimate test of Magellan's leadership. Outnumbered and on the brink of failure, he acted with ruthless determination. In a daring and brutal counterattack, Magellan's loyalists retook one of the ships. One mutinous captain was killed in the fighting, another was executed immediately, and the main ringleader was marooned on the desolate coast when the fleet left, a fate almost certainly worse than death. Magellan had crushed the rebellion, but the cost was high. The fleet was now scarred by violence and mistrust. After a harsh winter in Patagonia, where they also lost the small ship Santiago in a storm while scouting, the remaining 4 ships continued their search. Finally, in October 1520, they found it, a winding, treacherous waterway that cut through the tip of the continent. For 38 days, they navigated the perilous channel, battling fierce currents and unpredictable winds. The crew was terrified, convinced it was a trap. During this passage, the captain of the San Antonio, the fleet's largest ship carrying a huge portion of their supplies, lost his nerve. He secretly turned his ship around and deserted, sailing all the way back to Spain, taking precious provisions with him. When the remaining 3 ships finally emerged from the Strait, they were greeted by the sight of a vast, calm, seemingly endless body of water. After the stormy violence of the Strait, it seemed so peaceful that Magellan named it the Mar Pacifico, the Pacific Ocean. They had no idea of its true size. They believed the Spice Islands were just a few weeks' sail away. They were catastrophically wrong. What followed was an unimaginable ordeal. For 99 days, the 3 ships sailed across the Pacific without sighting land. Food ran out completely. The men were forced to eat sawdust, leather rigging softened with seawater, and rats, which they sold to each other for exorbitant prices. Scurvy, the dreaded disease caused by a lack of vitamin C, ravaged the crew. Their gums swelled, their teeth fell out, and their bodies were covered in painful sores. Men began to die. Their bodies unceremoniously dropped into the vast, empty ocean. It was a living nightmare, a slow, agonizing journey into starvation and death. The only thing that kept them going was Magellan's unwavering belief that they would succeed. In March 1521, on the verge of total collapse, they finally spotted land, the island of Guam. Desperate for supplies, the starving crew went ashore. The local Chamorro people, who had never seen European ships before, came out in canoes and, following their own cultural customs, began helping themselves to items from the ships, including a small boat. Misunderstanding this as theft, Magellan led a violent raid on the island, burning homes and killing several islanders to recover the boat. It was a grim first encounter and a dark foreshadowing of what was to come. Sailing on, they reached the islands that would one day be named the Philippines. Here they found a land rich with resources and friendly people. Magellan befriended Raja Humabon, the ruler of the island of Cebu. In his zeal to secure a Spanish foothold and convert the locals to Christianity, Magellan made a fateful decision. He promised to help Raja Humabon defeat his rival, a chieftain named Lapu-Lapu, on the nearby island of Mactan. On April 27, 1521, Magellan led a small force of about 60 men to Mactan, confident that their European armor and weapons would easily overwhelm Lapu-Lapu's warriors. It was a disastrous miscalculation. Magellan had severely underestimated his enemy. Lapu-Lapu's forces, numbering over 1,000, used the terrain to their advantage, luring the Spaniards into the shallow coastal waters where their boats couldn't provide cover. The Spaniards were swarmed. Magellan fought bravely, but he was targeted as the leader. Wounded by a bamboo spear and a poisoned arrow, he was eventually overwhelmed and killed by Lapu-Lapu's men. The great Captain General, the man who had crossed the world's largest ocean, died on a remote beach thousands of miles from his goal. His crewmates, forced to retreat, watched helplessly as their leader fell. They even tried to ransom his body, but Lapu-Lapu refused. Magellan's death shattered the expedition. Without their leader, the survivors were vulnerable. A few days later, their supposed ally, Raja Humabon, betrayed them, inviting about 30 of the most senior officers to a feast and having them massacred. The remaining men, now numbering just over 100, were in a panic. They didn't have enough crew to man 3 ships, so they made the difficult decision to abandon and burn the Concepcion. Now down to 2 ships, the Trinidad and the Victoria, they finally, against all odds, reached their original destination, the Spice Islands. Commanded by Juan Sebastián Elcano, they loaded the hulls with precious cloves. The mission was technically a success, but they still had to get home. They decided to split up. The Trinidad, in poor condition, tried to sail back across the Pacific, but was ultimately captured by the Portuguese. The Victoria, under Elcano's command, took the ultimate gamble. They would continue west, sailing across the Indian Ocean and around Africa, right through enemy Portuguese territory. To avoid capture, they sailed far out into the open ocean, a dangerous and unknown route. They faced more starvation, more storms, and more death. Finally, on September 6, 1522, almost 3 years to the day after they first set sail, the battered ship Victoria limped into the harbour of Seville. On board were just 18 skeletal survivors of the original 270. They were the first men to have ever circumnavigated the globe. Their leader was not Magellan, but Juan Sebastián Elcano. And yet, history remembers the voyage as Magellan's. Why? Because it was his vision, his unshakable will, and his brilliant, if brutal, leadership that made it all possible. He navigated them through mutiny, starvation, and the terrifying unknown. He found the strait that now bears his name and became the first European to cross the Pacific. Though he didn't live to complete the circle, his journey proved definitively that the Earth was round and connected by a single, vast ocean. It shattered old maps and opened a new chapter in human history. The 26 tons of cloves the Victoria brought back more than paid for the entire cost of the expedition, proving the financial viability of the route. So, while Ferdinand Magellan didn't technically circle the globe, his expedition did. His story is a powerful testament to human ambition, endurance, and the unquenchable desire to explore what lies just over the horizon. It's a messy, brutal, and complicated story, but it's one of the greatest adventure stories ever told. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more incredible stories from history. See you next time.